Hi guys, so we are in week 3 here, and we are discussing part 6 in our textbooks. I read a couple of the chapters from part 6 of the textbook, and the chapter that I've decided to talk about in this video is chapter 45, Why Youth Heart Social Network Sites, The Role of Networked Publics in Teenage Social Life by Dana Boyd, and it's on page 409 in my textbook. I have the 3rd edition physical textbook, and it's about 6 pages long. And so what she discusses in Why Youth Heart Social Network Sites is primarily why teenagers prefer social network to communicating with each other as opposed to communicating with adults is the primary focus of her essay. She starts out by talking about types of public and types of privacy. Essentially, what she touches on is that everything online is public, whether or not you set borders or you set parameters where only certain people can view what you're posting. Everything online, in one way or another, could be viewed by anybody, which makes it not private at all. Versus in person, you can be in a room by yourself with the door shut, and hence you're in private. And she goes on to discuss identity performance, meaning who we are online versus who we are in real life, if there's a difference, and if so, what that is. She talks about why online, why are teenagers choosing to express themselves online, and just to communicate online, as opposed to any other form of communication. I think she answers the question, why do youth love social networks so much? I agree with some of what she says in the essay, and I disagree with some of what she says in the essay, and I'll get into that in a second. First, I would like to preface this by saying that she, Dana Boyd, wrote this in 2007, which of course is 9 years ago, roughly a decade. And the primary social network site that she talks about the most in this essay is MySpace. Now, the primary social media site that I will be discussing at the end of this video is Facebook. So two different sites with similar goals, essentially, just more pertinent to their points in time and to usage. However, they are both essentially used for the same purpose. So talking about her chapter in the textbook, Why Youth Heart Social Network Sites, I read the chapter once and I started highlighting things, and then I reread it a second time and found that everything I had highlighted was something I disagreed with, which was not my intent when I went through with a highlighter, but is what I ended up doing. And so I'm going to read you the points with which I disagreed with her, and then I'll go over the points which I agreed with. The first point I disagreed with is on page 411. It's in the middle of the page, and she says, what we put forward is our best effort at what we want to say about who we are. The reason I disagree with that is I don't believe that we always put forward our best effort at expressing with our bodies and with our clothing who we are as a person. My examples being, for instance, myself right now making this video. Do I feel that what I'm wearing expresses exactly who I am? No, I do not. Another example would be women who wear makeup, who say wear a lot of makeup. That is them putting their best foot forward, to them at least, but they are not always constantly wearing makeup. Even in public, tons of women go out into public not wearing makeup, and then for special occasions put on makeup. And so that is why I feel that we are not constantly putting forward our best effort to express who we are, especially because lots of us don't know who we are and don't know how to express that. The only other points I disagree with on her have to do with the fact that this essay was written in 2007, and discusses MySpace. She talks about things in very black and white terms, sort of, you know, this is what's right and this is what's wrong. And a lot of it has changed over the past 10 years in regards to social media. And so I'll be discussing a few of the points that she makes that have changed over time. The second quote I'm going to be reading is that at the end of the chapter on page 416, she says, "Few adults could imagine every conversation they have sitting in the park or drinking tea in a cafe being available for such hyper-public consumption, yet this is what technology enables." I agree with the last part of the sentence. It is what technology enables now, 10 years later, even more so. However, almost every adult I know now is on social media, whereas she's writing this chapter from the viewpoint that most adults are not on social media and that it's only teenagers using MySpace. My personal comparison to Facebook is that every adult I know has a Facebook page, with the exception of my dad. My dad is literally the only adult I know without a Facebook page. My grandparents have Facebook pages, my boss, everyone I know who's an adult has a Facebook page, except for my dad. And my mother does, and she's happy with her Facebook page, and my dad is happy not having a Facebook page. I'll get a little bit more into that in a second about Facebook particularly, but right now I just want to finish up about the chapter saying that I do agree with the fundamentals of what she says in this chapter of why teenagers like social media to communicate with one another. I agree that it is a great way for teenagers to communicate with each other in the sense that it's free. There's very little effort involved. You don't have to drive anywhere. For instance, she referenced going to parks or drinking in cafes. You don't have to drive anywhere. You can literally communicate with anyone you're friends with on Facebook instantly via instant message. And so to answer one of the prompt questions, is this whole chapter pretentious hogwash? Not at all. I mean a little, but mostly not at all. I think in the time when Danah Boyd wrote this chapter, it was the most pertinent thing, and it definitely spoke to an entire generation. And now that MySpace is essentially moot, and very few people I know have MySpace anymore, the chapter does have some flaws. And so, again, my real life example is Facebook comparatively to MySpace. And when I was in high school, which was from 2008 to 2012, Facebook was the most popular website. It was the most popular social media website. And it's how we as high school students all communicated with each other, except for maybe text or calling each other physically on the phone. She does have one more quote in here that I want to read, just because it was funny, that she says, sorry, let me find it. On page 415, earlier meditated communication devices, landline, pager, mobile, allowed friends to contact with friends even when located in adult-regulated physical spaces. End quote. For instance, your parents' house is an adult-regulated space, and school, of course, is an adult-regulated space. I just thought it was funny that her three examples were landline, pager, mobile, because nobody I know has a pager. Very few people I know have landlines, whereas everybody has a mobile, or what we refer to them as cell phones nowadays, especially cell phones with internet, which makes communicating a lot easier. Again, that was a quote from her chapter on page 415. And so, again, when I was in high school, Facebook was the height of social media communication, which is why I've chosen to use it as my example. Since high school for me, so since I graduated in 2012, Facebook has dwindled in popularity amongst my friends and I. I personally would have gotten rid of my Facebook years ago if it weren't for the fact that Facebook is the only way that I get invited to things that aren't extremely big events. The only things I've gotten physical invitations for in the past couple of years have been weddings. Other than that, every single invitation I've received regarding something has been a Facebook invitation. And were I to delete my Facebook account, I would have had to have heard of all of these events that have been happening through the grapevine and through friends, as opposed to being invited and being able to RSVP. And so that's the only reason I haven't gotten rid of my Facebook page personally. So to wrap everything together, what she discusses in the chapter is that social media is a great way for teenagers to communicate with each other without adults seeing. And again, nowadays everyone is on Facebook, our parents included, our grandparents included. And so we do have to be a lot more careful about what we post online, which makes her comments on MySpace a little bit more moot, because we're definitely more careful on Facebook than kids in 2007 were on MySpace. I'm definitely very clean, very family friendly on Facebook. Again, the only reason I have it is to be invited places. So that's sort of my example of how a media of sort of secretive communication 10 years ago has become definitely a more mass communication, and we do have to be more careful with how we use it, but it's definitely more in the now. Again, every adult except my dad I know has a Facebook page. So it's an example of how social media is spreading. I personally couldn't guess where social media will be in 10 years and what the most popular site then will be. I couldn't even take a guess whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat. All I know is that it will definitely affect all adults, not just teenagers, as far as communication, and maybe by then teenagers will once again have a site of their own that adults are no longer on. So that was sort of my review of chapter 45 and my own thoughts on social media. And we are, of course, working on our first assignments now. I don't have anything regarding to social media in my first assignment, first draft that I've written, but this has given me some ideas, and I look forward to next week progressing on our drafts and progressing on our videos, and I look forward to seeing everybody else's video. So, thanks guys, talk to you next week.